Shooting it raw?
Yes, shooting it raw.
For me, it's a really big part of storytelling. Because as the saying goes, an image tells it is 1,000 words. It's worth 1,000 words. And for me, it's really part of embracing what it means to be a good storyteller. Within an image, you can really let your imagination run wild in terms of what that particular image means to you, what it makes you feel, kind of what you believe the story behind it to be. So I definitely find that a good photograph of whatever it is can be really powerful when it comes to telling a great story.
Fantastic. Okay, so Lilian Sue, right? Am I saying your last name correctly?
Yes.
Okay. So Lilian, nice to meet you. Welcome to the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
My total pleasure. Here's what's great. I have no idea who you are, and you're going to take me to school, and I can't wait.
Sounds good. Looking forward to it.
Okay, so let me just open up the first photo. I don't look at the pictures beforehand, so I don't know what I'm going to get. So here's the first image. Oh, okay. Okay, so what we have... Okay, so brain cells firing. Okay, so what we have, I mean, no offense, it looks like a stock photo. Did you make this photo? Or, because that's a great photo.
It is a stock photo.
Oh, okay. So
yes.
it's a sunset. It could be a sunset actually off of Wreck Beach for all I know. The sun is the sky is super warm. It's close-up photo of some surf. So it's not like big waves. It's just like the sort of the foamy surf hitting the shore. The water is just kind of clear, and there are a couple of like little features, mostly bubbles, I guess. And right in the middle at the bottom of the image is one of those glass spheres that kind of flips the landscape and back. So the colors are mostly orange. There's a sun setting, lots of oranges and blues reflecting against the sky. It's a powerful image, but you've placed the word mindset in the top left, which in a design perspective, like the top left sort of quarter, you have mindset. So clearly that's the focus of the image. So who are you? Lilian, what is this?
Well, one of the reasons why I chose that photo in particular with the glass dome is talking about a changing of perspective. And for me, having a strong and healthy mindset really comes down to that change in perspective of how you feel, how you think, and what your subconscious beliefs are about who you are, where you are in the world, and what you choose to do with your life. And that is really important to me because in my day job, I am a PR coach and publicist, and on a daily basis, I work with creative entrepreneurs to do things like break down their limiting beliefs, push past those mindset blocks, and really kind of get to the heart of, okay, why do you feel this way? Where is this fear coming from? Why do you feel stressed and anxious about moving forward with your business? What is the root of where your imposter syndrome is? And the reason I got into this, Ran, is because I spent a lot of years, I've been in business for myself for 15 years, and I spent a lot of that 15 years simply kind of following the status quo of what everybody else in the industry was doing. And as a result, I was getting burnt out. I didn't enjoy my work anymore. And I said, you know what? I'm at a point in my business where I could really use that third party outside perspective to help me figure out how to get back on track with this, how to fall in love again with what it is that I do. So I started working with my mindset coach. And she really completely changed my perspective into saying, hey, you know what? Just because the industry is going one way doesn't mean that for the rest of my working life, that's the only way I can do business, number one. Number two, I had a lot of great entrepreneurs coming to me and saying, you know what, I would love to work with you, but I cannot afford to pay you for a PR campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of sat down and went, you know what, there has to be a better way for me to continue to work with these phenomenal people and still provide them with that education to help them push past these mindset issues. But I cannot proceed to do that if I'm not first walking the walk that I'm talking to them about.
Okay, okay. I look at you, I hear what's coming out of your mouth, and I see the slide of mindset, and it's same, but different from my perspective. Over the past 15 years, I've been running a kind of consultancy in service leadership, which is really about going into any kind of habitat, which is a company or an organization or group of people, and say, okay, well, what is the mindset going on here? And you use a phrase like self-limiting belief, imposter syndrome. I mean, that's less my thing, but self-limiting belief for sure. And this notion of mindset for me is absolutely everything, because that sets the tone for what you think may happen, and it also kind of in some ways puts a fence around what's possible, when actually you should constantly be breaking down that fence ahead of you. How can people find you online?
They can definitely follow me on Instagram at Lilian Sue, copywriter PR. I'm on there all the time, sharing, mindset tips, strategies, and tips for public relations and things like that. They can go to my website at inretrospectwritingservices.com. And to your point about it, they need to kind of break down that gate. So many of the people that I work with, when they first come to me, a lot of where those limiting beliefs come from is because they're always thinking about the negative. And they're
Okay.
always thinking about what if I launch something and it doesn't go well? What if I don't sell well? What if people, oh God, what if, people find out I don't actually know what I'm talking about and they think I'm a fraud? And what I do in coaching them is really focusing on, but what if that doesn't happen?
Mm.
What if you get that positive response? What if you get in front of the right audience and people start engaging with you? They start buying from you. They start believing in the story that you're sharing with them.
Mm.
And that's really kind of where, to me, I think mindset has the power to influence just about everything it is that you choose to do.
But for sure, for sure.
And without that, you end up making a lot more mistakes. Things don't go the way that you want, and you end up, quite frankly, sabotaging yourself.
Hmm. Well, for one client, just to kind of add my little thing, for one client that I worked with them for about a year, and the company was really hurting, and they had lost lots of staff, lots of sales, and then I came in and essentially shifted their perspective or their mindset to say, from, well, so far you understand your business and your operations to be within this sphere of the world, whatever it is. And then what I did was I just moved their gaze or the perception to go to see actually a much wider, larger perspective, and basically a change in mindset. And then the question is, well, how do you value that? Because you can't, it's not a tangible thing. It's not like a device that you plug into the back of the computer and then bing, you have a new mindset. So how do you convey to a person how to value a change in mindset? Because for somebody who's pretty much like, yeah, I know my business, I know what I'm doing, it's all good. How do you go to them and say, believe it or not, what will define your success is your mindset, and how do you value that?
I look at it as talking to them about, okay, where are you at in your business at this point in time? Where do you want to go? How do you personally, looking at it, think that journey has gone up until this point? Because there's always, nothing is ever perfect, as we know. There's always places where we could maybe push the envelope a little bit more. There's maybe ideas that we haven't thought of. And I look at it as, where are the gaps? And why do you think those gaps exist?
Mm.
And I work with them. In what we do is we do quite a few brainstorming exercises. We do journaling quite a bit to really kind of get down to the heart of, let's get introspective and really talk about and get this down on paper about exactly how you feel with your business and where it is that be honest with yourself, actually have blocks.
Right.
Because even for the people that are doing well, what they don't realize is, even in the sphere of that, there are still mistakes being made. And looking at it and getting introspective with it allows you to kind of take a step back and go, these are the gaps that have existed for weeks, months, years that I haven't been able to see because I've been so focused on the sales strategy, on business development, and not really taking a step back and going, wait a minute, am I actually presenting myself the best way that I know how to do to the right audience? Because the other part of it is that I see I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and smaller businesses. So what they tend to do is they have a tendency to really create and put out content that shares who they are, but only in one way.
Okay. Yeah.
They'll put it out and then they'll call it good.
Yeah.
And then they'll wonder, why am I not getting the response to my story, to my brand, the way I want it to? And one of the big things I always tell them is, no two audience members are alike.
Mm-hmm.
No two customers are alike, and people will absorb information in different ways. So if you're only ever putting it out in one way, you're missing out on reaching people where they spend their time and how they want to absorb information and absorb stories as well. That's the other kind of big portion in a lot of businesses I see that people are sort of missing out on because they're so focused on sort of doing everything one way.
Okay. Well, let me ask you something.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you. I hear you. I live in the same part of the village, as you. So it makes total sense to me. How do you ever expand that sort of conversation or that discussion, or even for a listener right now going, well, they're talking about business. Like, who gives a shit? I'm not a business person. I'm a painter. I couldn't care less. You know what I mean? Like, but I always say, well, substitute life management, not even just take out the word management, life, personal development experience with business performance or whatever, right? So how much of what you do is actually a personal...
I think there's a lot of correlations, and you can absolutely take the mindset strategies for business and apply them to life as well. Because so much of, speaking from my own experience, my family does not have an entrepreneurial background. I am only one of two in my family who chose to take that path. And in doing so, I came up against a lot of cultural norms, a lot of butting heads with my parents around what a career looks like, what a good life looks like, certainly what financial stability looks like. And as a result of that, I spent a lot of years in my business only believing that I could do things one way because I was chasing the wrong things.
Ah, okay.
I was chasing the financial stability without thinking about how it would impact my daily life. Like, am I going to be spending, my weekends
Right.
chasing after money instead of enjoying life? Am I going to be worrying about how to put food on the table because I'm looking at, going into business with the wrong kinds of clients. And all of these things not only affect how I run my business, affect, your personal relationships as well, because a lot of these fears and a lot of how we were born, raised, and conditioned to see life, to see mindset, to see what it means to embrace joy can really affect how you choose to live. I mean, for the longest time, because of so much of, the internal strife within my family, like I went to counseling, but I didn't realize until years later that it was only addressing the symptoms of what I was dealing with, not the root causes. And in doing mindset coaching, I really came to realize that I've developed different perspectives with the people in my life. Like being
Mm.
able to let go of toxic relationships is a big one, personally and professionally. Being able to put healthy limits on myself in regards to what I do on a daily basis so I'm not burning out
Mm-hmm,
in
mm-hmm.
whatever it is, even if it is hobby related things. Because when you get to that point, Brand, that is the easiest way to lose the ability to love even the things that you do as a hobby
Oh, for
for
sure.
fun, right? So it was really going through this coaching and applying it to my life that I was really able to sort of let go a lot of the unhealthy relationships, a lot of the unhealthy perspectives that don't serve me. And inherent in that is tied up to the fact that, my self worth is not tied into my productivity.
Right, right. That is an important sentence. And I'm going to use that. I'm going to put a bit of a stop to use that to go on to the next photo because I'm very curious. I didn't know this is going to be the conversation. This is great. Okay. So this image, I'm going to hazard is potentially another stock photo, unless you actually
Yes.
own that. Okay, so so it's basically a photo shot down, looking down on a beautiful like wood table where the wood is like 2x4s or whatever that's been beautifully stained. Kind of gives this rustic kind of feeling. On the right hand side of the image is an old Corona manual typewriter that's been weathered, and it's so the tone of the color is quite dark and ashy and rich and beautiful browns, and yeah, it's a nice sort of a rustic photo. And on the left, again, there's a word dominating the image, which is storytelling. Lilian Sue,
Yeah.
take it away.
Storytelling is another huge part of what it is that I do, both personally and professionally. Growing up, I actually had a dream to make a living as a novelist.
Okay.
And it's actually something that I've come back around to just within the last year. I was dissuaded. This was the early 2000s before self publishing was big. And I was told by family, it's like, you're never going to eat if that's your career path. So in university, and this is the genesis for why I started my own business, I got into communications and marketing. And I said, you know what? As much as like I love storytelling, so how about I help people learn how to share theirs? And that became kind of the genesis for what I do now in terms of all like everything from when I was doing copywriting and the social media side of thing to doing the PR side, and really about encouraging people to learn how to share their stories the right way to get in front of the right audiences.
Mm,
Funny thing though, going back a little bit to that mindset piece, I tell people that I talk to socially and clients as well all the time that, I used to be exactly where they were at. I
mm-hmm.
spent years just kind of relying on like my testimonials and showing like the results that I got clients. And I said, hey, that should be enough. That should tell people, I'm able to get them the results and help them grow their brands the way they want to.
Right.
Here's the problem. What it didn't tell people was, who am I?
Okay.
What am I about, right?
Right.
What can they expect from working with me in terms of the kind of person that I am?
So you had this epiphany that what's missing is your story within the bigger context as a way to kind of attract people to your service, to your work, to your ability. What is that key insight that people aren't getting to unlock their own success within storytelling?
I think it's one of those things where, again, it comes back to mindset about fear. Fear is a big one, in that when you choose to get personal with people, because even though you're talking about business, a lot of it is personal,
Sure.
because you're talking about why you got started, what inspires you, what keeps you going,
Yep.
and also sharing bits and pieces with your audience about the things that resonate with you, things that mean a lot to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of that comes from a fear of rejection. That's a really, really big one. And a fear of judgment is also a really big one, where it's like, you fear that putting yourself out there means you're making yourself vulnerable,
Right.
which makes yourself vulnerable to criticism, rejection, judgment, all this negativity. And like I said before, as human beings, we all have this really bad habit of catastrophizing things
Okay.
that 9 times out of 10 never happen.
Yeah. So on the one hand, what you're doing is you're explaining to me the utility and the importance of storytelling and of getting personal. So I'm going to turn that lens back on you and say, okay, so tell me the story. How did this epiphany? Usually epiphanies come from growth that is
Yeah.
potentially painful. So how would you show and not tell?
Well, I mean, I came to this because I was burnt out. I was attracting the wrong people, both professionally and personally.
Mm-hmm.
um to the point where it's just like, you know what, I'm like, there has to be a better way of living my life.
Okay.
The coping mechanisms that I had up until that point, which were primarily the counseling, primarily leaning on family and friends that I have, I'm like, this is not helping me address the root issue of why I'm having so much difficulty,
Mm.
why I'm getting burnt out, why I'm not happy to work, like wake up in the mornings, why, I don't feel like I have anything to look forward to.
Mm.
I have to fix this before it's too late, and I lose the ability or the willingness to want to do anything.
Right. Right.
That
Right.
that was kind of my driving force for that.
Sure.
And when I sought out help working again with my mindset coach, it really came down to, I came to the realization of, as a person, in sharing my story and in doing so, my ultimate goal is to build relationships,
Sure.
build positive relationships. And in order to do that, it is in fact a give and take.
Mm-hmm.
If you want someone to give something to you, then you have to be willing to show up and tell them something about yourself that's going to be about putting yourself out there. So I've been honest about it. I've told them about, I know a lot of you guys you struggle with stress, depression, and anxiety. Some people have chronic illnesses while running your business. I'm like, hey, I'm the same way.
Mm-hmm.
I also have a chronic illness. I also run a business. This is how I've dealt with it. And I wanted to be transparent with you, because that is how we build connections. That's how we get to know each other.
So would you say that part of the fuel, like where does the pandemic enter in that picture?
Well, just before it, I had a full-time in-house opportunity not work out. and it didn't work out because there was a lot of miscommunication surrounding their needs, and it turned out I was hired for something that their CMO, who was hired later, actually didn't think they needed.
Okay, okay. Yeah, it happens. I mean, shit happens.
Right.
It's happened to me. It's also it's baked into the nature of what we do because I mean, I'm back in Canada from Hong
Yeah.
Kong after basically going through the very same tensions, frustrations, whatever you want to call it, failures. But yeah, I hear you. I hear you for sure.
Yeah, so I went through that and I said, you know what? I'm going to take a step back. I'm going to reevaluate what it is that I actually really want to do
Mm,
and how I can continue to make a positive impact with people, because ultimately that's how I want to show value. That's how I want my relationships with them to be valued. And I don't want to always have to be justifying why it is that I do what I do.
mm,
And I came to that realization because it's like so much of the other side of the career path when you're looking for jobs and everything, so much of it is surface level. So much of it is, do you fit the set of parameters someone else has decided, right?
tick the boxes for
Right,
sure.
right, right. And because of that, so much of that is I'm not actually really getting to know people
Hmm.
and understand them and form that connection before getting a job. So if that's what I want, then the best way for me to do that is to really come out and be transparent, be vulnerable with my audience, and continue to add value and show them that I'm not, at the end of the day, like, yes, I would love for us to work together, but I don't feel like what I'm selling you is just simply a service.
Hmm. Hmm.
What I want is for us to build that relationship and to be there for each other, even as friends, even without that. And over the course of the pandemic, what's happened is I've been able to do that with folks that are all over the world
Mm.
much more readily, because so many of them are reaching out similarly and wanting to make those connections as well, because in-person connections have drifted,
Hmm.
other people have moved. Unfortunately, there's been folks that have lost people as well. So that's kind of deepened the connection in that way. And also, we've been able to sit down and have serious conversations about society and the world at large. Recognizing representation in media is a big conversation I have
Sure,
all the
sure.
time. Talking about police, particularly in the States, police brutality,
Yeah.
other issues surrounding human rights. And it's been great to kind of open up my own world on a personal level,
Hmm.
even though my original intention might have been to meet these folks professionally. It's been really good to open my world on a personal level and actually learn more new
Right,
perspectives.
right. Learn more new perspectives. Well, I think that is the perfect way to move to the next image. Do you agree? Like, should we
Yeah,
use that as the next as the segue?
sure, yeah.
Lilian Sue's in the house. I love it. There's an emerging theme. So it's a photo, it's an image of a notepad, and on that notepad are two like pens. It's very kind. The notepad is very it's like a kid's notepad. The pens are they're nice. One's white with polka dots, and one's got these nice stripes. It's kind of pinkish with these red stripes. It's illuminated probably by a light box. If I'm gonna get nerdy about the photographic technique, it's probably a stock photo. And again, this looks like a kind of an image that you use for your work. And it says on the bottom, it says goal planning. So goal planning. I I adore the fact that we meet and I'm essentially getting a 1 hour one-on-one window into how you're spending your thoughts. And so goal planning, take us away. It's awesome.
It's something that I think about on a daily basis because my philosophy every day is if I can do one thing today, it's a win.
Oh, okay.
Like I'm happy, it's a good day. And with goal planning, it really kind of comes down to, what do you want out of life?
Mm,
What kind of life do you envision having, and how are you going to work towards that? And that is something that I do for my clients as well as on a personal level. Like what does life look like? And for me, in the last few years, it really has changed.
right.
I value the relationships and the experiences a lot more. So in order to have more experiences, what does that look like? Where am I traveling to? What concerts am I going to? What's a new skill I'm going to learn?
Mm,
Right? And I talk to clients about that all the time, where it's like when you're talking about business, you can't build a strategy or go anywhere if you don't know where you want to go,
of course, of course.
right? Otherwise, it's just the blind leading the blind. So you have to sit down and really think about, and I tell them get specific with it as well. I want to grow sales is not good enough.
Hmm.
How are you going to get there? What is it that you want to do? What sort of areas do you want to grow, and the people that you want to meet and the impact that you want to make in order to continue moving forward? And it's the same on a personal level. What does life look like for you? I mean, one of my goals ideally is to live part of the year here and live part of the year elsewhere, and to have that flexibility, just move around, travel, not feel like I'm stuck in one place.
I'm laughing because okay, let's get a little bit more specific. Where is here? Where do you live?
I'm in Vancouver.
You're in Vancouver. Okay, and,
Yeah.
and where is somewhere else? Just anywhere else?
I've thought about, like, pre-Brexit, the UK was an option.
Uh huh.
I've heard great things about the Netherlands. I was in Palm Springs in July, and I fell in love with Palm Springs.
Nice, nice.
So, I mean, there's definitely options, and I've always kind of wanted the freedom to do that because living in another place, I think, also really changes your perspective
100%.
in terms of how you want to live and everything else.
So one of the things that I've done in my own work and in books that I've written and stuff like that, or co-authored, is this notion of what is to think strategically. And so that it can be taught, like understanding the strategic mindset is something that you can teach other people. So that's just another way of calling it goal planning, right? So for somebody who's listening to this in their car or wherever it is that they're listening to this, how would you succinctly explain what it is, the process of goal planning? Like, how do you set a goal?
Well, it's really about coming down to basically what do I want
Mm-hmm.
and where do I want to go? It's really those two questions, and it can be done for your professional aspirations and your personal life, because it's really about where do I want to go,
Mm-hmm.
what do I want to do, because I'm at point A right now. Where's point B? And how am I going to get to point B? What are the different paths I can take to get to point B? And it's, people would ask, well, sometimes the question has come up, why would I need to leave point A? Well, the reasons you have for leaving point A are because you want to keep growing, you want to keep learning, and you're not happy staying stagnant. You're not happy staying complacent. Because if there's one thing that I've learned in my life, staying complacent will kill you.
Sure. Okay.
Because what ends up happening is there's going to be outside forces, and I'm sure you've been through this too, where you think you're finally settled, you think you have stability, and then something happens to yank the rug out
Of
from
course. Yeah.
underneath you, and then you're forced to start from square one. For the folks that are continually looking at, I'm at point A, I want to get to point B, point C, point D, you're always looking at different ways to continue to grow, to learn, to captivate yourself, to get that new perspective, to get those new opportunities. And in that way, I almost feel like working towards those goals are a new kind of stability almost.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
not stable in the sense that you're always going to be working the same job or making the same amount of money, but stable in the sense that you know that you're going to be okay because there's always new opportunities out there for
Right.
you. Your belief has changed from being finite to being infinite.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things that came up in my head when you were saying this was this notion of a self-limiting belief. Like, well, I want to stay in A because blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's fine. But how about you make it real in terms of like a case or an example where you did this for a client? You don't have to give the specifics, obviously, but make it real for somebody who's listening, going like, "Oh, so that's what it looks like."
Yeah, I mean, I've had a client who came to me and he said, you know, I'm releasing this graphic novel that's based on my previous web TV series and a film that I did. I could really use some help to kind of get it out there, and his goal was to increase sales and get use this as a vehicle to have people then go back and watch the film and watch the TV series.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay, let's put everything together. Let's get all of the storytelling elements together that you want to share, like the images, what the story is actually about, keeping it sort of self-contained so that folks that come across it are not going to feel lost
Mm-hmm.
because it is connected to your prior properties. And we put it out there. We put it out there in a promotional campaign and ended up getting a lot of coverage, reviews, and promotion from media all over the world who were excited about the project, who wanted to keep reading the graphic novel, who some of them went back and watched the film and the web series. And it really was about point A was having written it to begin with.
Yep.
Point B was, hey, I want to get it out there because I want it to get to the hands of the right readers. I
Mm-hmm.
want it to get in front of the right audience. And we did that by building the relationships with these media outlets and these readers and sharing that with them.
Hmm.
And they loved it. They shared their thoughts and opinions on it, and that really helped grow the audience and grow the excitement for the next issue coming out.
Okay. How does the process of writing, of actually sitting down and creating a text, which is a, a linear progression of ideas, right? So you're over time, you're just setting down a narrative or a story going from point A to point B. So in a way, like how much is your process and the secret sauce really boils down to that of a writer's mindset?
It's funny that so many of the folks that I'm friends with and people that I talk to and that I've worked with see it as separate silos.
Okay.
Writing is one thing, marketing is the other. But I agree with you in that there's a lot of similarities because in order to effectively promote something, you have to have something to tell people.
Sure.
And in order to have something to tell people, you have to know what that story is. So, where are we starting? Well, we're starting from the beginning of the story, which is who are you? Why do you do what you do? How do you do it? And why does it matter?
Mm-hmm.
And when you choose to share those pieces of yourself and your story with people, that's what generates that trust and that credibility. and keeps people coming back to paying attention to the other things that you put out there. And they will come to you if they trust what you have to say when it comes to knowledge that you have to share,
Right.
experience, skills, expertise. And it's really how somebody comes out there, business owner, to build their reputation as the go-to person, the leader for this particular subject matter, because people value their opinions on it.
Yep. Yes. Agreement. Total full agreement. Yes. Oh, I can ask you 1,000 questions. How about I'll just keep one? You want to move on to the next photo?
Sure.
These conversations fly by.
Yeah.
We occupy or inhabit very similar professional interest worlds. I come from a background essentially from writing, so our mindsets, I think, are quite similar.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So next photo.
Sure.
Nice. Kapow! Okay, so it's a series. So you've sent me a series of 4 images in the same kind of vein. So this is an image which is crafted to kind of teach something. And in this case, the word of the image is promotion. And inside that image is basically an SLR camera on a tripod that's, with the whole kind of kit, like with a little shotgun mic on top of the camera, even a diffuser light in the image with the handles. Yeah, so promotion. Let's talk promotion, shall we?
Sure, yeah. I think that a lot of the people I work with, when I first come across them, and the folks I talk to, a lot of their barriers when it comes to sharing those parts of their stories is because I don't want to sell to people. They have
Right.
that image in their heads of like the used car salesman.
Speaking of self-limiting beliefs.
Right. Or the door-to-door sales guy
Yeah.
that everybody always slams the door on, and they're like, I don't want to be selling myself. I hate doing that. And what I tell them all the time, I was actually just helping out a friend of mine on revamping his newsletter and getting more into sponsorships
Yeah.
for his radio show. And I was saying to him, I'm like, here's the thing. It's not about selling yourself. It's about building those relationships.
Sure.
Right. I mean, in the case of something, in his case, like sponsorship, it is maybe perhaps a little bit more transactional because they're giving you some money and in return, you're giving them, X amount of promotion on all these different platforms. But it's still a good relationship that you're building. You're still bringing them business and they're still helping out what it is that you're building. And I think what it really comes down to is people get so bogged down in not wanting to be judged as being pushy or fake or just disingenuous. And I tell them all the time, I'm online all the time saying, it's about, particularly in the world of public relations, if you try to lie, if you try to spin anything, they will find you out in a heartbeat.
Oh, for sure.
And in today's day and age. So really what it's about is being authentic, being transparent, being honest about what it is that you're doing, why you're doing it. And in a lot of cases, for some of the smaller entrepreneurs out there, really getting into the behind the scenes nitty gritty of like, hey, I know you haven't heard from me in a while. This is what I've been dealing with, and I wanted to be transparent about it because I didn't want to hide anything from you.
Yeah.
And I think learning how to promote in that way that's more authentic, whether you're using public relations, whether you're using social media, email, website, whatever it is that you're using, that's really what people gravitate towards because they don't want to be sold to, they don't want to be yelled at, and that's kind of how I see advertising as promotion. Because it's one of those things. It's like you drive past a billboard, who's going to remember it?
Yeah.
Right.
No, but I also love the kind of because I think like a writer. So in as I'm listening to you, when you say the word advertising, it's like there was a font change and there was like an italics. I was just like an advertising, and it's like yeah. I find so one of the things that because my first degree was in creative writing and arts, very soft, and then I went to human rights. Also, I would say kind of like no, it's still controversial. And then I went into medical publishing, and then I ended up meeting one of the co-founders of one of the largest companies in the world, right? So DHL, and a couple of things with Poe. Okay, his name is Po Chung. So with Poe, I essentially was the apprentice to his mastery of what service leadership is about. He would say that the person, and he's not the first person to say this, but still, it's this idea that the person with the best story wins. The people are attracted to others through our stories. And so the idea of promotion is just making sure that your story, it becomes alive because it only lives when somebody else receives it or hears it or reads it.
I mean, I totally agree with what you're saying because it's just like anything else related to storytelling is if you're not talking to people about it and you're not sharing it, who's going to know?
Yep.
And if people don't know what they don't know, right?
Yeah,
at
exactly.
the end of the day. And if they don't know it, then it makes no sense to be sitting there and going, why am I not getting the results that I want to get when you're not sharing it?
Mm-hmm.
No one's talking about it because you're not sharing it. And I think a lot of this kind of comes down to being willing to push out of your comfort zone, because as the saying goes, courage is not the absence of fear, it's moving forward even with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I choose to do that on a daily basis because living with regrets is a much harsher way to live. I would rather have tried something, put it out there, than looked at the aftermath and go, okay, maybe that didn't work the way I wanted to, but that's fine. I don't consider it failure if I have something to learn from it. And I feel like there's always something to learn from that.
Yes, well said. Let me shift over onto one track. One is this idea that if we pull focus and pull back, for somebody who doesn't like the vocabulary of business and clients, which is kind of why I was trying to enlarge it before by saying, okay, it's about life. It's bigger than just clients and business. It really is that. So if we keep pulling back, it's this notion that this is about survival, right? So being in Vancouver, for example, where there's tons of acting and lots of theater. I know less about theater, but more about the movie business. Mm-hmm. It is so competitive. And in a way, why is it competitive is because different people are in competition with each other ultimately to survive. Like they're really trying to promote themselves and get out there because at the end of the day, they have to put food on the table. Like they have to earn a living. Mm-hmm. And so I think on the one hand, hopefully somebody who's listening to this and saying, well, this is really businessy and that's not really my bag, then I'll just say, look, just switch the words around because this is really about survival. So when was there a time where you really created a breakthrough for somebody, like a huge one, around their mindset around promotion? Because for a lot of people, promotion is like, it's kind of gross. I don't want to be I don't want to be like a sleazy car salesman. But yeah, so describe a time when you really created this breakthrough where so you described before with the graphic novel, yeah. But where was it where the change in mindset was like really stark?
Yeah, I had a coaching client. She was somebody who had kind of super skilled in a bunch of different areas, had been into the podcasting thing for a long time.
I hate podcasters.
And she had launched I think 3 of them. And she was starting to think to herself, she's like, I'm starting to notice that there's folks that actually want to learn how to do this kind of thing. And I've worked with some people on that side of it. But where her mindset block was I don't know if I can teach. I don't know if I have enough knowledge, enough expertise, and in order for people to take me seriously. So I flipped the script on her during one of our calls, and I said, okay, well, let's dig into this a little bit. What is enough?
Mm.
Who decides what is enough in terms of how proficient you are at something? Because for someone like me, looking at it from the outside, I said, you're already launching, like you're working 3 of these.
Yeah.
You clearly know what you're doing. There's been a lot of mistakes that you've made in the past that you've learned from, that other people could learn from. So what could it hurt to start out with sharing some of that?
Yeah.
Sharing some of your journey, talking about what you've learned, and allowing people to kind of get to know you beyond just being behind the mic,
Right. Right.
sort of thing. Because I said to her, I'm like, it's an arbitrary word, enough,
Uh-huh.
to really look at where your knowledge is, your expertise is, and where your experiences have led you. Everybody has that. The key is to looking at changing how you choose to value those things. And when I said that to her, I swear I saw the light bulb go off,
Awesome.
and she went, wow. Like, she's like, I never thought about it that way, because I always thought, like, there's people that have more degrees than I do, there's people that have launched bigger podcast networks than me, and I'm like, and
Yeah.
that's their journey.
Yep.
That doesn't invalidate your journey at all, or your experiences, or your knowledge. The key is to take a step back and look at it as, what have you learned that you think someone else could benefit from, because you don't want them to make the same mistakes?
Yes, I agree. No, I love it. I love it. Lilian, this is great. What's also interesting to me is how different people find themselves, so for example, my energy is kind of spazzy and playful and whatever that word, all those things, flighty. But then as you speak and how like how you're presenting, and how I see you and how I'm experiencing your communication, you have a very decisive, clear way of putting forth your ideas that is quite compelling and quite convincing. So that's a compliment. There are no insults on Shooting It Raw. It's a compliment.
I
So no,
appreciate
really,
that.
no, it's great because I get to see how another person landed in the world of this thing that we do and how it manifests. And so I'm going to end this I'm going to let you end this in a way so that you can really frame, why would somebody, it's because for a lot of people, buying for this kind of service, there's always a bit of a barrier. It's like, well, I don't know, do I really want to pay $900 for that thing? So how do we flip their mind to realize, oh, wait a second, like, how do you value a mindset? Like, how do we get them to realize the value of, because I see it, like I totally see it in talking to you. How do we get people to realize the magic that you bring to them?
It comes down to, like, the question I always ask is, are you someone who wants to change?
Okay.
Do you want that change, and do you want that personalized guidance and that education that is going to help you gain the confidence to get to where you want to go? Because my motto for my business, I follow this proverb pretty closely, is, you lead a man to a fish he will eat for a day. You teach him how to fish, he will eat for a lifetime. And that is true of anything, in that, once you have that, once you have those healthy coping mechanisms, once you have those tools, nobody can take that away from you. That is your power, that is your knowledge, and that is what's going to help you gain the confidence to tackle these kinds of things where originally it would paralyze you. It
Yeah.
would take you months, weeks, if not years to actually move forward and do something. But now you can take a step back, think about it for a couple days, and go, you know what? This is the right step for me to take.
I love it. So Lilian Sue, One time before we wrap this up, what is the website that people should go to check you out? It's going to be in the show notes, but just say it so it burns in their heads.
They can find my website at In Retrospect Writing Services, that's all one word, .com.
Sweet! Lilian, thank you. This is great. So fun.
Yeah, like this, I really enjoyed this, Ran. I've done, no word of a lie, I've done quite a few interviews over the last couple years, but this one ranks up there as one of the most unique.
Aw, I'll take that as a compliment. Thank you so much, Lilian. Awesome.
Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it